Normally I don't need a microphone to be turned on. My voice is rather loud, but I've been reminded to put it on. I am Dan DiMicco, Chairman, President, and CEO of NUCOR Corporation. I serve on the U.S. Manufacturing Council of the Department of Commerce, the Executive Committee of the Board of the World Steel Association, and I am Chairman of the American Iron and Steel Institute. I also serve on the U.S. Competitiveness Council. Thank you, Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Camp, and the other members of the Ways and Means Committee for inviting me to testify today. Thank you, Congressman McDermott, for the introduction. America is known as the land of opportunity, but for the 26 million plus Americans who are either unemployed or underemployed, the land of opportunity seems like an illusion today. We are failing these Americans and all future generations of Americans. The policy response to the worst job situation since the Great Depression has fallen far short of what is required. We need bold measures. Passing the Currency Reform Fair Trade Act will signal to these Americans that Congress understands the severity of their situation and is going to finally help. The legislation is a jobs bill, pure and simple. It will do more to stimulate the economy and create jobs than just about anything else Congress can do, and it will not add to our national debt, just the opposite. Ending China's currency manipulation will reinvigorate our manufacturing sector and our economy, reducing our budget deficits. By failing to take the lead and combat China's mercantilistic trade practices, we are serving up our jobs, future economic well-being, and national security on a platter. President Reagan got it right when he said, to make the international trading system work, all must abide by the rules. He made this statement the day after the Plaza Accord that was signed in New York City in 1985. Prior to the Accord, Japanese trade policies, including currency manipulation, seriously impaired the ability of U.S. manufacturers to export and actually undermine their ability to compete in their home market. In fact, NUCOR Corporation and Yamato Kogyo, a Japanese company, formed a joint venture to build a steel mill in Arkansas, an investment that was initiated because of and made possible by the Plaza Accord and the global rebalancing that followed. Much like then, we need China's economy to mature and for China to become a responsible player in the international monetary system. Yet China refuses to play by the rules of global trade. China's practice of manipulating its currency, along with other protectionist measures, has driven up our trade deficit and is having a devastating impact on our manufacturing sector and our overall economy. These predatory trade practices have contributed greatly to the loss of 6 million manufacturing jobs over the last decade. Manufacturing employment is now at its lowest level since 1941. These jobs, with family-supporting wages, were only partially replaced by service sector jobs that pay much less. As a result, the American middle class has suffered and is in decline. America is not the only country hurt by China's currency manipulation. Europe, Japan, and even the poorest developing countries are also put at unfair disadvantage. The United States and many other countries around the world have shareholder-owned companies that operate in free markets. These companies cannot compete with state-owned enterprises operating in countries that violate the rules of trade. When China joined the WTO, it agreed to these rules. Our relationship with China is not working today because we are not holding them accountable. Shame on us. Enforcing the agreed-upon rules of global trade is an absolute necessity in order to have a competitive global market that works for everyone. Many of our trading partners are also voicing concern about China's currency manipulation. As the world's largest and most open economy, we need to take the lead in enforcing these rules. I believe if America leads, others will follow. We are not against trade with China, just the opposite. Ending currency manipulation will create a healthy trading relationship between our countries and sustainable long-term growth for both the U.S. and Chinese economies, and indeed the entire global economy. In fact, a stronger yuan will have a significant long-term benefit for China, generating more purchasing power for their consumers and creating export opportunities for American manufacturers. Doubling exports, as the President has called for, can only be achieved by addressing this issue along with the overall subsidy and trade policies of this country and China. I ask you, how in God's name can we be successful on the export front to the level we need to be if we can't compete in our own home market because of the massive trade distorting practices of our trading competitors? The truth is we can't. So the choice is clear: correct this problem or continue to subject the American middle class to a downward trend in the future. For far too long, our government has tried quiet diplomacy for decades. This approach has failed and failed miserably. Passing this legislation is the type of firm and decisive action needed. This bill allows injured industries and workers to seek a remedy under our trade laws by treating currency manipulation for what it is, an illegal export subsidy. Predictably, critics call this legislation protectionist and warned it could start a trade war. I laugh at this only because we are already in a trade war and we have yet to show up to the fight. We must have the will to change the way we work with China. It is time to stop allowing the growth to come at our expense. It is not a healthy relationship. The American people get it. They know how China is cheating, and that is cheating is stealing their economic opportunities. All they want is for the agreed-upon rules to be enforced. The 140 House members who co-sponsored this legislation get it. The time for talk is over. It is time for the House to vote in the affirmative. Congress needs to stand up and show its support for American workers and families. Along with trade enforcement, it is going to take a public-private cooperative effort and strategy comparable to World War II and the Apollo program rolled into one to create the 25+ million jobs we need over the next 5 years to put Americans back to work who want to work and ensure a strong economic future. The investments we made during and following World War II created decades of American prosperity and drove the growth of our middle class. We also need to develop a national manufacturing strategy, make substantial investments in our infrastructure, and increase our production of all domestic energy sources. These investments will help reinvigorate our manufacturing base and create a prolonged period of prosperity for future generations. We must once again be a nation that makes and builds things. Let's seize this opportunity as a country, the government and private sector working together to overcome the greatest economic crisis since the Great Depression. Thank you.